Improving cash flow. Okay, let's do a little recap of cash flow. Things you should know already before watching this presentation. Cash flow is the flow of money into and out of the business on a daily basis. Cash flow forecasts are a prediction of money flowing into and out of the business, where a cash flow statement is the actual flow of money into and out of a business. Typically in an organisation, a cash flow forecast may be used by a manager or a business owner or a lender who is looking to consider lending money to the business, maybe because of a short-term financial problem or maybe a long-term financial investment. Okay, so potential solutions to solving cash flow problems. We already know there are two of these. You either increase your sales revenue or you reduce your costs. Look back at my video using the bathtub. Remember, you can inject more from the cold tap, so sales revenue, which is good revenue, to fill your bath back up, or you can try and shrink the size of your plug hole to reduce the amount of money going out of your business. Typically, a combination of both is a good solution. So let's look at the common causes of cash flow problems. Some of the common causes of cash flow problems tend to be seasonality. So look at an ice cream man who sells ice cream, or an ice cream person, shall I say. So somebody who sells ice creams may sell more in the summer than in the winter, or somebody who sells umbrellas may sell more umbrellas in the winter than in the summer. So they might have a short-term cash flow problem. This is where maybe an overdraft comes in handy, or a short-term source of borrowing. They may have poor financial planning, so they actually haven't conducted any financial cash flow forecasts. They've not thought about what-if analysis, so comparing how factors may change. Poor debtor manager. Now remember, debtors are people who actually owe you money. They've got a debt to you. So taking too long to collect money often. So think about the days it takes. So let's say, for example, you're collecting debts after 30, 35, 40 days, when actually you should be collecting after 20 days. Poor creditor management, where maybe you're paying your suppliers too quickly. So maybe your creditor days is actually shorter than your debtor days, which would be probably very silly, really. You're actually paying your suppliers before you've got the money in from your customers. Or poor management of your overheads. So you've got vastly expensive overheads in your business. You need to cut them down. Again, looking at costs. So what we need to do is let's have a look at some cash flow problems and try and put them into a diagram. As you can see here, here's an example cash flow. What you may want to do is pause the video in a minute and watch this and think, okay, how is this business performing? Jot down a few points. It's probably the best way to think about it from that angle. Have a look at the business and give me a comment. So you want to pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you've now thought about some ideas how this business is performing, and I'm hoping that you've probably worked out that it's not doing too well. If you look down here, the minus 5,000 at the end of June cash flow is not looking too positive, and if you notice, it's making a loss every month. The closing balance is going down. And every time you look at this here, the actual blue tap, the cold tap, the sales revenue tap is not injecting enough money in to cover the expenses, the outgoings, the plug hole. So this business is not doing too well. Okay, so what can we do to improve the cash flow position of this business? One obvious solution that I'm hoping you said is to increase the selling price of the product. So you could actually increase your sales revenue to the selling price. So if we increase our selling price, as you can see here, we've increased our total inflows across the organisation. However, what are the potential drawbacks of increasing our selling price? I'm hoping the first thing that comes to mind is you might think about losing potential customers. You may actually see a drop off of customers. This is where elasticity of demand links in nicely. So is the product elastic or inelastic? If it's inelastic, then hopefully this strategy will work. If it's elastic and price elastic, it's not going to work, because you may lose more customers than your actual increase in price. So that's one option. We could increase our selling price, but that's not enough. Notice the business is still making a loss. So we need to do something else. So let's have a look at what else. Find a cheaper supplier. That's going to reduce our costs. So you make the cost of sales now, they're going to drop. So all of a sudden now this business is starting to look a bit better. If you notice, we're starting to see that the amount of losses we're making are starting to fall. So things are going to start to pick up. The cash flow position of the business is starting to get better towards the end of this period here. So it's fair to assume that things are on the right lines. However, we're still making a loss. We still need to borrow money. You could say that at this point here, we're overdrawn still. So we're still going to borrow money from the bank. And what's the problem with an overdraft? It comes with an interest rate charge, an expensive one at that normally, more than a loan. As you can see, we are paying interest on our bank loan at the moment here of £20 a month. But we're starting to see things change. But what's the drawback of using a cheaper supplier? Well, I'm hoping you're thinking about quality may drop, which then could impact on our unique selling point of our business. It could impact on our customer loyalty. It could even impact on our sales. We may see our sales actually fall because less customers make a purchase from this business because we start to make our products with an inferior quality. Remember what customer service says. It's about meeting the expectations of the customer. And if we find a cheaper supplier and their expectations are not being met, then they may leave us. So let's look at another solution. We could actually pay a wage, not a salary. So we're going to move to a variable cost, not a fixed cost. So, of course, we're paying by the hour. All of a sudden now, if you look at the business now, it's starting to make real improvements now. We cut down on our costs. Because we're quieter, we're a new business starting up. We're not going to be paying out as much money at the start as we are at the end of the cash flow forecast. So things are looking more positive for this organisation. Of course, the problem with the wage is that as soon as we start doing this, the more hours they work, the more workers actually earn. So in this case here, when the business is starting to pick up, we may find that our actual costs are growing to go up towards the end of the cash flow forecast, maybe in December and January next year, as opposed to where our salaries are fixed costs that we know we're exactly going to pay out every month. So the more hours we work, technically, the less we earn. But things are starting to look up. So if you notice, we've changed a few variables here and things are starting to look up. So let's have a look at another variable. Invest our own money rather than a loan. Now this is an interesting factor we could do. So we start to invest our own money rather than actually paying a loan. So you notice there, I've got personal investment now of £2,000. Now there's an opportunity cost here. Think about this, because obviously I'm now going to invest more of my money, so that option to use it to do something else is gone because I'm putting all my money into the business. However, I make an instant saving on my interest because I'm not paying any interest here now. And if you notice my cash flow here is fairly positive, and the business is starting to show real improvements. It starts to show some signs of growth. The positive position is not in a negative. We're not going to be borrowing. Yes, we might have some months down here, the net monthly, you see where it was going down here, but look at this, it's starting to turn, the business is starting to pick up according to our forecast. So things are looking a lot better for this organisation. As a result of this, we're starting to solve our cash flow problem. But remember, the drawback here is the opportunity cost, because we're having to invest it, and also, have we got that money in the first place to put in there? If not, then we might have to borrow it off family and friends. If we borrow it off family and friends, okay, there's no interest charge, but is that going to cause conflict later on? These are all things that need to be weighed up and considered when you do this. However, we have technically there some news. So, for example, other solutions you may want to use to solve a cash flow problem could be take out an overdraft. Short-term loan covers you for periods when you go into a negative. However, as soon as you pay it off, it's perfectly fine. Remember though, an overdraft is short term, so less than a year. You're looking really, you want to be using more 30, 60 days, and you want to pay it off. You really don't want to be living on an overdraft. Remember, it's a hot water tap, borrowed water, borrowed money, so it's expensive. Short-term loans, you can take out a short-term loan. Now, they could be a bit cheaper than an overdraft, and they may cover you for the short term, but again, it's a loan, it's a hot water tap. It's borrowed money, it comes with an interest. Sale of assets, so selling off the things that you own. So you could opt to try and sell off some of your assets. Of course, the problem with selling off your assets are that you're actually selling off some of the items that your company owns and may need. So an asset typically is something the business actually has got for a reason. They spent money on acquiring that, and you never get back the full value. So if you bought a computer for £1,000 and you sell it again, you're probably going to get 200 quid. So you're not going to get the same sort of money back from what you spent on your assets. But it's a good way of raising your own capital, and there's no interest on there. You could do the policy of sale and lease back, and this has been adopted by lots of shops in the high street. This is where you sell off your items and you lease it back, typically done with buildings or machinery. So you get in a cash return, and then you pay your landlord a guaranteed lease, a certain amount of money, and of course, over the longer term, of course, you're going to pay more money to lease that building than what you actually sold it for. But of course, in the short term, you've got some instant cash, again, which comes with no interest and no borrowing charges. So a good little solution for the short term. But long term, you have to raise questions because you're not in control of the leasing. And then, of course, debt factoring, which, of course, is when you sell off your debt. So this is a policy where you actually sell off all the debts you've got. Now, again, this shouldn't actually happen if you manage your debts appropriately. So as long as you actually appropriately collecting money when you should do, you should have no long-term debts. You should be getting your money in on time all the time. However, if you're being poor in your debt management, you may want to sell off your debts. But remember, debt factoring is a process where it's going to cost you money. If you're owed £10,000, you're probably going to sell your debts for max £2,000, £3,000 instant cash, but not the same amount of money that you're expecting to get back in the first place. They're all cash flow solutions. Okay, that's it. You should now be aware of the causes or the potential causes of cash flow problems and the various implications and solutions that they can have. You should be able to assess a cash flow forecast position of a business and analyse it thinking about various solutions. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and like my YouTube channel. And remember, you can tweet me any areas of business you want to cover in the future, and that's not a problem at all. Or check out my website, BeeBusinessBee.co.uk.